there. All right, let's dive into this. And get into, I want everyone to kind of have takeaways that help them feel like you have the support to implement this. So again, I mentioned, I know many of you were joining us, but what I mentioned at the beginning was I feel like I underappreciated how important it is to communicate in a really supportive way with the person that you're caring for and with yourself. So you may be here because you're a caregiver supporting a loved one with dementia, and you might be here because you are worried about creating or developing dementia yourself. And it's this communication does not only happen between people. It happens between ourself and ourself, right? We constantly are telling ourselves things. We're constantly berating ourselves. And I want to take some of these concepts and expand them from that interpersonal relationship with a loved one to also our relationship with ourselves. So if you are here and you are concerned about dementia for yourself, this information applies to you. Please, please, please think about this as it applies to that relationship with how you talk, how you communicate with yourself. I want to reiterate that I believe nearly everyone can prevent dementia, and the vast majority of people can reverse their cognitive decline, and at the very least, slow the progression and oftentimes stop it. And the challenge really is putting all of these puzzle pieces together to get this protocol to work for you. I also highly recommend starting early, starting when you're young, starting when the disease progress hasn't become a real structural challenge in the brain, but is more of a biochemical one. This is when we want to implement all of these changes. So I, feel very supported by Dr. Bredesen. He's phenomenal. He's been so helpful. And he's been why I've created this Solsaria, the medical clinic that I have, where we support patients with dementia, and also Marama, the residential care facility for the elderly, and also the coaching courses that I do to help support people in groups so that they can get the Marama experience at home. And Dr. Bredesen has just been such a phenomenal resource, a support, and he has really paved the way for me. And I feel so grateful for his support and also just the opportunity to learn from him, that he's really been the one who's been sort of, screaming into the wind for a while that, hey, look, Alzheimer's can be reversed. After so many people were told for so long that this wasn't possible, I believed them. And I really came into his work as a skeptic, and now am, like here I am, one of the biggest proponents, because I've watched it work over and over again. So I understand, I think it's totally reasonable, totally responsible for people to continue saying, the research doesn't support this. I get it. They haven't seen it. We just published our paper. It's actually coming out in the August edition of the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, where we showed that 73.9% of the time, if somebody comes in with a MoCA score of 12 to 23, we throw everything at it from the Bredesen protocol, 73.9% of the time, or 17 out of 23 of those participants got better. They got measurably better. And this is a really exciting time because Dr. Bredesen was right. We can prevent and reverse Alzheimer's. It's just a matter of doing it. So if you're struggling, I have one quick announcement. There is one spot available in San Diego at Marama. And so I wanted to make sure everybody here knows that there's 3 spots remaining in Kansas. And you can apply for those at maramaexperience.com. Chat with Carrie, our director of operations over there. She will help get you through the process and determine if it's a right fit for everybody. So if you have a loved one who you think needs more support in an immersive environment, those are available. If you want more information, head to maramaexperience.com. All right, let's dive into it. So I want to share this story of Bob and Mary, who I saw several months back, but it's crazy because I saw a couple very similar to them today, where Bob has been struggling significantly with his cognition, and they have been in a moldy environment. They live in a beautiful, wonderful home near the beach, and they didn't want to give up their house. And so she was fighting so hard to get him to take all the supplements, to do all the exercises, to take the medication, and to do the brain games, and to not watch TV, and to not eat the ice cream. And what I saw when we chatted with them, I turned to Bob and I said, hey, like, what's going on? Do you not believe that this will work? Like, what's preventing you from doing this? And he said to me, he's like, I wish it was like it was before, where we felt connected. She's just always correcting me. And my heart just broke. Like I teared up, and we all did, all three of us did. And you could just see how sincere he was in just wanting back love from his wife, instead of constantly being told what to do and how to get back on track and what he was doing wrong and having her frustrated and angry with him. He just wanted to feel connected. And I think that sometimes we can lose track of this. And so, as I mentioned, I had a couple today, and she is feeling burnt out and tired. And like she is just doing everything she can to get him better. But they end up butting heads a lot and fighting. And then they both kind of spiral. And she feels like he doesn't want to get better. But it's really, he wants so badly to get better, and she loves him so much. She wants to do anything and everything for him, but the communication is just a little off. And so they're not seeing that from each other. And so I hope that this idea of connection over correction, that it's okay to fall off the wagon on keto occasionally, and it's okay if you don't get every walk in. We want that to be the rule. But it's even more harmful. It becomes even more toxic when our loved one is stressed and anxious and in a state of fight, flight, freeze. And so how do we switch gears to be in that state of connection, fun and play and connected? That is when our brain is really going to heal and thrive. And so that's really the point, is to give you the resources and some language and some ideas tonight to create more of that connection. So Bob and Mary have decided to move out of their house. They actually heard a podcast, or I think it was a summit episode. They were like, I heard you talking about us. We knew it was us. And so they decided to put their house on the market, and they are going to move to a non-moldy house. And already they've done a few things. She was actually noticing it was affecting her health, and it might have been part of the reason why she felt so irritable. So they are on a path. They're already feeling better. They're feeling more connected. They're feeling like more of a team. And it's really been this incredible transformation. And I'm hoping that as soon as they're out of that moldy environment, we're going to start to see his cognition improve, and certainly her health improve. There was already some subtle change when they got the air filters going. And so I feel a lot of confidence that now that they are getting back on track, they're in more alignment, they're going to get out of the house, he has some dignity back, right? Like he has, and that connection, that love is just, it's so, so healing. So thanks to Bob and Mary for teaching me that lesson, and to my patients today for just showing me how important it is. So starting with love, and none of us are going to be perfect. So there's compassion. Compassion, I listed here third, and really it should be first. Start with love and compassion for yourself and the one you're caring for. Take for granted, I'm going to ask you to take something for granted. Everyone is doing the best they can. You are showing up here because you want additional information. You want to understand and be present and do the best you can for your loved one and for your own brain health and for those around you. You can already give yourself that badge. You are doing the best you can. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. Have compassion with yourself, have compassion for others, and assume the best. Be authentic. So when you show love, there was a gentleman in Washington, D.C. who is known as Compliment Man. And he was basically busking. He was a homeless man who was getting money from people, right, in the subway, I think along the transit. And what he did was he found something to compliment with everyone, and he was authentic. If she had an amazing pair of shoes, he complimented her shoes. If it was an amazing hat, he complimented her hat. If she had a great smile, it was that. He was authentic. And I'm sure he made more money than any other homeless person in all of DC. And this was a phenomenon. Like, he was on Instagram and people referred to him and knew who he was, because what he did each day was give authentic compliments. So find the positive, look for the gem, look for the positive in that relationship and compliment it. Maybe they're a great cook. Maybe they're really good at making you laugh. Maybe they're trying really hard and you want to just compliment the effort. Find something to authentically highlight with love. And then empower. As many of you know, I have a 4.5-year-old daughter, and she's never been an independent adult. So when she is frustrated about something, or she wants her freedom, or she wants to do things her way, it's a little easier to kind of parent her and put her back in her, in the boundaries. With someone who's an adult, who's had all that independence, who's been able to drive, it's harder, and empowerment is more important to them. So making sure that your loved one, again, we're highlighting the things that they can do and giving them the ability to do all of that. For some people with severe dementia, this looks like having them write checks and then making sure they never go out in the mail, but they feel like they've been productive. They feel like they've gotten things done, and they feel empowered. And at another level, where whenever someone can help in the kitchen or put food away or wash the dishes, that helps them to feel needed and empowered. And so highlight those things that they are capable of, rather than, oh, I know it's going to be so much easier for you to just get it done and do it, but allow them to do the things that they can. Be curious. This comes up. We'll talk about this in a few slides, but being curious about what is the unmet need. If somebody is agitated or frustrated, how can we identify the unmet need or be curious about it enough to figure it out? Releasing expectations. A lot of this has to do with, I saw this in the couple who I saw as patients today, that her expectation is that he's going to be independent, that he's going to be able to spend time on his own, that he won't be upset when she's gone on a work trip. And releasing some of that expectation and kind of finding ways to cope with it in a healthier way, accepting the reality and meeting that is another way to show love, to show compassion and love. And then the 4 agreements, this is the Don Miguel Ruiz book, but just kind of, this always makes me think of that. Come back to always doing your best, not taking anything personally. Again, I saw that today. It's so hard when you have these family dynamics that someone's already referred to. They can be complicated, and this can be a very stressful time when you are showing up as a caregiver. And making sure that, let's leave behind, or let's set aside what happened 20 years ago, or whatever is happening with the will or inheritance, or all of these crazy, or the amount of time that you're spending caring for a loved one versus your sibling. Set those things aside. They're not personal. We each just have our dynamics. And so do your best to not make assumptions, follow through on your word, and take nothing personally. A couple of great resources I want to make sure everyone has. This is my copy, my very well-worn copy of the book, Learning to Speak Alzheimer's, which can make a massive difference in how we think about communicating with our loved ones. And especially when they have dementia, it's really going into their space and their world and meeting them there, so that can diffuse a situation. That instead of correcting someone, again, connection over correction. So if someone says, oh, mom made me breakfast this morning, it was so yummy, and mom hasn't been around for 50 years, what did mom make you? What did she make? Was it one of your favorites? How did it smell? Go into the senses and go into their world and connect with them, rather than reminding them that mom's been dead for 50 years. There's no way she could have made you breakfast. That was an approach to care many years ago. And we want to shift into this positive approach to care that diffuses that heightened anxiety or depression, and really helps to neutralize and even enhance connection. So you get that oxytocin and those hormones that are associated with more connection, that are also good for the brain. We don't learn under stress. We can't think under stress. And so anytime we can reduce the stress, increase the joy, we will increase the cognitive capacity. That is the goal. So some Alzheimer's kind of communication suggestions: instead of arguing, try agreeing. Instead of reasoning, try diverting. Instead of shaming, try distracting. Instead of lecturing, try to reassure. Instead of suggesting someone try to remember, reminisce. So this would be like if maybe it was your grandma, her mom had made apple pie. It's like the cinnamon and those apples, and talking to the senses, the smell, the taste. And instead of suggesting they remember, if you can describe Grandma made the best apple pie with those apples that were on her tree. And she always put so much cinnamon, and she used to let me shake it. Oftentimes, if you're saying that as daughter, adult daughter, about grandma, a memory of grandma, your mom might step in and say, I remember I ate all of that pie one morning and she was so mad at me. And all of a sudden she's in the memory with you and has her own. Instead of expecting her to remember, if we can let go of that expectation, but kind of support the memory by describing it, that can sometimes come back. And it's an opportunity for connection and joy. Instead of saying, don't you remember I told you, just repeat yourself, just say it again. Instead of saying you can't drive, suggest maybe we can go to the store together and I'll take you to get whatever it is that you need. I'd love to spend the time with you. Instead of demanding, asking someone to do, instead of saying, put your clothes on, would you put your clothes on, please, now? Instead of being condescending, try to encourage. And instead of forcing, just reinforce. Let's put your clothes on now. Can you put your clothes on now, please? If it's a struggle to get dressed in the morning. So these are just some ideas. You might want to take a snapshot of this particular slide. There will be replays, but this is just a good one to have on your phone, in your back pocket, when you're finding yourself in a potentially frustrating moment, to just pull that out. Is there a way I could apply one of these phrases, some of this communication in the moment right now? Teepa Snow talks about focusing on the gems. So think about your loved one, or think about yourself, and remember, this is about focusing on what is there, not what's not there. And again, today with my patients, I saw this. The focus was so much on what he couldn't do. He's lost his driver's license. He can't stay alone without me. And then all of a sudden we were talking about him reading a book. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're reading. You can read. Like, what are you reading? What are you excited about reading? What if what's your favorite book you've read lately? He can read and he loves to read. So that shifting the focus onto what he can do and amplifying that. Okay, how do we spend more time reading? Because he can do that independently. That can help reduce his anxiety so she gets some more free time. Shifting the focus to what is precious and unique and what did they have versus what is now missing, so that they can shine bright. So for him, he actually was struggling more today with his hearing because he's lost one of his hearing aids and he's using the other pair. They're waiting on the replacements, but he needs a setting that's quiet, so that that extra noise, that background noise, isn't going to distract him, so he can hear when someone's talking to him. He needs bright light so he can read. He needs a quiet space that's set up where there's not a lot of clutter, where he can really get into his latest book. And so creating that environment and that setting, he doesn't want the dogs running in and out. They're her dogs. So, she needs to keep the dogs separate and keep them in her office while she's working. And then that won't distract him or bother him. And then he won't distract and bother her. And then this reminder that everyone is doing the best they can. And that might be worth putting on a sticky note on your mirror, on the refrigerator, wherever you look several times a day. Everyone is doing the best they can. Coming back to that place of compassion and that reminder that just kind of drops the intensity of the emotion that can come up at times. Some other phrases for caregivers. I'm sorry, I was just trying to help. I'm sorry I made you angry. I'm sorry I embarrassed you. I'm sorry I treated you like a child. I'm sorry, I know this is hard. Acknowledging these miscommunications and taking some responsibility for them is another strategy for diffusion of these intense moments. And so I highly recommend, again, take a picture here, put this in your back pocket. And remember that authenticity and that sincerity. This is going to go a long way. Many people with dementia, they will not remember exactly what you said. And this is true for all people, right? It's not exactly what you said, it's how that you made them feel. We have so much power to change someone's emotion through connection, through love, through an apology, through a sincere apology. And that can help diffuse and increase that capacity for joy, and with it, that cognitive capacity. This is another helpful phrase for caregivers. This is the Ho'oponopono prayer. I know there's several of you joining us from Hawaii, so this will be familiar to you. And we see that in Hawaii, but also in other traditions around the world, this component of forgiveness and healing, that in order to heal, we have to forgive others and we have to forgive ourselves. And this prayer, it has to do with that, and it's part of the Hawaiian practice of Ho'oponopono, which is part of their traditional healing practice. And saying, looking into someone's eyes, deeply into someone's eyes, I strongly encourage you to find someone to do this with today, now, after, as soon as this is done. Look into their eyes and sincerely say, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, and thank you. And repeating that over and over, repeating that phrase over and over while looking in someone's eyes has a deeply healing effect. And someone with even severe dementia will understand, if you are sincere and you use those words, they will understand the emotion and it will have a healing effect on them. So keep that one handy. I want to share the transformation of Chris, a patient of mine who was included in the clinical trial. And her MoCA score started at about a 21, 22. And by the end of 12 months, she was at a 30. Really, really, really exciting stuff. She's still a patient of mine. I love seeing her. And she got so much support from her husband, and her quality of communication really was enhanced by his support. And then also, we had to communicate with her employer. She was still working and she was being asked to work night shifts still, and her cognition had been significantly affected. She was working as a nurse in the OR, and she was having trouble keeping up with her charting. She was having trouble learning new things on the computer. There were all kinds of ways that her cognitive decline was really impacting her relationships and her work. But they were still requiring that she work one overnight call shift per week. And so this was really disruptive of her sleep. And she had to learn to communicate and advocate for herself in terms of getting what was necessary for her. And many of us, we need to learn to set these boundaries, right? Like, what is going to help and support what's going to help our health as caregivers. I've told many of you before, you're anywhere from 2.5 to 6 times the risk of developing Alzheimer's in your lifetime compared to those who are not caregivers. This is a huge amount of risk, and reducing that burden of caregiving, so much of it comes from the quality of our communication, making sure that we have good boundaries set up so that we can get the sleep, we can get the exercise, we can do the things that we need to do. That came up again with my patients today. She's not getting the support she needs, so she's feeling burnt out. She hasn't communicated with her family, with his family, the urgency and the necessity of help. And so that is shifting. We've discussed it a lot today, and that is shifting. And what you see when we do this are these transformations. And you can see here, Chris, not only did her MoCA score go up, right? This is cognition, this is so important, but we could see that on her WAVI, the EEG machine that we use to measure the amount of energy or voltage coming from the brain, her energy levels went up. And her reaction times, this is like running a race around the track. You want these numbers to be lower. You want to be faster and faster. Her reaction times went down. So her brain reacted more quickly, and her motor skills actually increased in terms of speed, faster speed. So really, really exciting stuff when we do this Bredesen protocol, including the components of communication. So I wanted to share a big win from our coaching classes, and I have another exciting announcement about the coaching. This was an example, and you can take a picture, and we're happy to share this with you. I don't, Tyler, if you can throw this into the chat, that'd be awesome. This is an Excel spreadsheet that one of our coaching clients made that you are welcome to use as a framework for designing how to fit the Bredesen approach into your world. This is a form of communication. So when we have a clearly posted schedule, this helps. We see this at Marama. A clearly posted schedule helps to reduce anxiety. It helps to keep people on track. They know what to expect next. There's not a constant asking, oh, what time are we leaving? Or repeating questions. once they know that a schedule is posted, they can go back to it, and it gives them a sense of agency and empowerment, that they know what's going on and they know what's coming next. And when we have patterns around when we get exercise, when we eat, and when we go to certain appointments, when we maybe get in the sauna, when we do certain things throughout the day, then again, this is a sense of agency and empowerment, because there's an expectation that's set, and then the schedule is meeting that. It is a form of communication to create these routines, and then also to post them so that they're handy and everybody knows where they are. So this was just one of the wonderful things that came out of the coaching program, these group coaching programs that I do. And it's so fun, because as a community, we all learn and grow. I'm of course trying to share what I've learned, but there's so much wisdom in these groups. And part of it comes out as this very tangible spreadsheet that Joe made. Actually, he joined us from Spain. I know there's somebody here from Spain tonight. So thank you for joining us. He was a pleasure to work with. He is an engineer, so you can see that here in his spreadsheets. It's amazing. And also how committed he was to supporting his wife. So I want to share that we had, over the past week, I was so surprised. It was amazing. We completely sold out of our caregiver training course that we started on Monday, which was so much fun. I loved getting to know everybody. It was really, we've got a couple people from Maine, a couple people from Texas. It was just so fun to have everyone there getting to know each other, excited to get started. And we sold out so fast. So we opened up another one, which I'm so excited to be doing. We already have a handful of people enrolled in that, and we have a cap. So we do cut those off, because it's really important that it's an intimate group and everybody gets a chance to share and engage. And so we have that starting soon. So there's an 11 module training course that comes with it. And that is the evergreen course that you have access to immediately. And then you get the 12 live coaching sessions with me, which we did one tonight. It was our 11th for the course that we've been doing. And it's just so fun. Everyone is so connected. And there were a couple of people like, wait, what are we going to do after this? Well, you get to stay connected through the Facebook group, and you get a one-on-one call with me in those 12 weeks. And if we need to set up more coaching calls, we can do that if that serves you. And you get this priceless community. You will have accountability partners that you can keep in touch with. You will have meetup partners. It was so fun. The people in Maine who just started, they are very close to each other. So they've already decided that they're going to meet up. And you will get access to this community that is dedicated to reversing Alzheimer's, just like you are. So we're going to learn from each other. We're going to sync up in terms of goal setting, and we're going to, add these things week by week. We're going to add pieces of the puzzle so that we can create this whole picture of the Bredesen protocol and get you the benefits. You are getting, so again, it's the Marama at Home course. It's the coaching with me. It's the private Facebook group. It's the one-on-one call with me, in addition to the coaching that you'll get with me. And all of this adds up to nearly a $7,000 value. And we are doing this right now. We've been doing it for $24.97, but the other big surprise tonight is that we're extending our sale rate. So I know that makes such a big difference to so many of you at home. We're going to do the 12 weeks of live coaching, this great package, for just $19.97. That's a $500 discount. And this is the last time that we're going to do this year. I just am so overwhelmed by the support and by just how much fun it is and how much people get out of it, that I want to make sure that this is available to everyone. So I love this, because we're going to run into right before Thanksgiving. So you're going to go into the holidays with these great foundations, these great habits, and be able to really thrive in that time. And my hope is to have these great connections with your loved ones over Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and whatever you're celebrating at the end of the year, New Year's. When you see those loved ones, when you see your friends and family, the quality of that connection is going to be so much better, because your health is that much better, because you put in the work, you put in the time, and you've gotten the support that you need to fully implement the Bredesen protocol. So I can't wait to just enjoy the connection with you guys in this course, and can't wait to meet more of you there. Again, this right now, just through Friday, This sale is on for $19.97 or 3 payments of $7.99 if that makes it more accessible to you. In the future, these will be starting at the $2,500, and that will be true in January when we do the next one. So make sure that you take advantage of this now if you want to jump in now. There's a money back guarantee. I never want you to sit in confusion. I want you to be sure that this is the right fit for you. If you have a question about that, there's no questions asked. We just send you your money back. We want everyone to get access to this. I've watched so many people transform, and I want you to get that experience. Debbie, it's so fun. I was telling her, she's one of the people who we come across who's in all 3 categories. She is looking to prevent. She has ApoE4 status. She's got the genetics for dementia. She's caring for her mom remotely. Her mom's a couple states away, but she's one of the caregivers for her mom, and she is a nurse. She's an advanced practice, a nurse practitioner. And so she is wanting to learn this so that she can help. She's in administration. And then she also wants to help herself, of course, and she wants to be able to help her mom. And this is who shows up. This is who gets a ton from the class, people who want to help someone else and also help themselves. And then, we're hearing, I've enjoyed these sessions tremendously. I've learned so much that's so practical and that I can implement in my day-to-day. These are very practical steps. They're very individualized and personalized. And then there's that community, the value of that community. What we hear is that people are loving the class. Thank you for offering it. It's been on my mind for years to do something like this. I'm a nurse and have focused on older adults in my capstone paper when I was in school. I love learning about the brain, and I love being with older adults. I had 3 children, and then I've shifted my focus to them, but something about this is so important to me. It's bigger than just my mom. This is a humanitarian issue, and I love that I'm learning more using the data to drive what we do as nurses so that we aren't in the dark and guessing. I love focusing on what's actually going to get results. That's what we're here to do, focus on what's actually going to get us results. If you are like Richard and you want to remember the names of your grandchildren, it was so sad today. These patients they were the classic example of who we help through this coaching process. There's a lot that I do with patients, and I'm seeing them every 6 months to review labs. And there's so much value in the coaching component because these little things come up. Like he's now forgetting the names of his grandkids, and he's not getting fully into ketosis. And we see that often when people aren't fully in ketosis, they're still having some sugar, that they go in and out of remembering things, or they go in and out of having incontinence issues. And when we can fully commit to ketosis for a little while, we get actual healing, and then we can bounce in and out of it. But we want to get that full healing capacity. This program it's that you hear people say, I would do anything to get one more summer with him, or one more anniversary with her, one more birthday, one more holiday. And this is that anything. The Bredesen approach is that thing that you can do to keep that connection, to keep those memories alive, to keep that person there with you, not just physically, but mentally. If you are like Lisa, she joined the course because she went through taking care of her dad who had Alzheimer's, and she watched her mom struggle to take care of her grandmother, her dad's mom. Her mom and dad did that together, and she doesn't want the same for her children. She's now has seen both her parents, and then she's had to do it. So 2 generations have had to care for elders with dementia, and it's painful, it's hard. And it made her, unavailable to take care of her grandkids and support her kids as much as she wanted to. And her kids, she doesn't want them to have to go through that. And all of the stress of caring for her dad, she's noticing that she's not as sharp as she was before. And she also has the ApoE4 genetics. And she wants to write a new story for her family. She doesn't want her kids to do what she had to do and what her parents had to do in terms of kind of sacrificing caring for grandkids and caring for that next generation. She wants to be fully present for them and helpful. She wants to continue to be helpful for her great grandkids. And she doesn't want her children to feel that burden of caregiving that she did. If you were like Nora, I've shared her story. I just love her story. She enrolled in the course because she wants to see her grandson Tyler graduate from college. He had cancer as a baby, and she was really involved in helping her daughter care for him at that time. And there were moments when they weren't sure he was going to make it. And now here he is in his third year, I think, at Oregon State University, studying science and forestry. And she wants to see him walk across that stage and graduate. And I keep telling her, like, I want you to see him when he's a dad. I want you to have a relationship with his kids. We don't just have to get you to graduation. We need to get you to that graduation and beyond. And I think she is going to do it. She's going to get there. So this is what the Marama at Home course looks like when you go to log in. So after you've purchased the course, you will log in. This is what it looks like on the other side of that. And then this is me. You'll see me regularly like this. There's going to be, live Q&A, the coaching. We'll go through the material each week. And I give you the exact steps and specific instructions so that you can get the benefit of Marama and an immersive experience from the comfort of your home, surrounded by family and friends. So you'll do the exercises and the modules at home, and then together as a group, we answer questions and dig into some of those exercises. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. You are the inspiration. I'm excited to start the healing journey, continue the healing journey with some of you. And I just am so inspired by your care and your dedication and your love, your commitment and perseverance, and so just grateful and humbled by your attention. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. And I hope that we can answer some questions right here, right now, and add a ton of value so that you can get all of this going at home. Okay, so I'm seeing chat and questions, and I promised you I would get started with the chat. With the Q&A. All right, so what do you recommend as a dietary measure for a patient prescribed an antibiotic regimen to deal with microbiome effects? Okay, awesome question. Typically what I would recommend is probiotics right away. So I just, by nature of things, when I finished training, I was in a practice that used a lot of Zymogen products. And so I have learned to rely on them and trust them. So I really am a fan of Zymogen, and they have a product called ProBiomax. I'm also a fan, if that's too hard to come by, the Garden of Life products that are easily accessible at Whole Foods or any health food store. Garden of Life, sometimes people think it's called raw because there's a big, it says RAW really big, and then Garden of Life above it, but the brand is called Garden of Life. You can look for that online. Garden of Life, those ones need to be refrigerated. Make sure those stay in the refrigerator. And then hopefully you're getting, you can get up over the antibiotic regimen and then stay on those probiotics for a good 90 days after. You need to repopulate for a while. And then as much as possible, have fermented foods. So your sauerkraut, kimchi, maybe miso, potentially kombucha. It's kind of high in sugar, but you can get some that aren't. So getting foods are the best way to repopulate a decimated microbiome if you're taking antibiotics. This doesn't refer to anything that I've heard discussed in the seminars, but I'm wondering about the connection with tinnitus and dementia. Do the lifestyle changes mentioned reduce or prevent tinnitus? Tinnitus is an interesting one. A lot of times people with traumatic brain injuries will have tinnitus. Sometimes if you've bonked your head really hard and had a concussion, that can lead to some changes and the ringing in the ears. What I've seen work best for tinnitus is actually acupuncture. So yes, there can be some overlap in terms of the neurological system. So there was a recent study actually just done out of the University of Chicago that further supports that you can use a smell test as an early sign for detecting dementia or mild cognitive impairment, that especially a rapid decline in the ability to smell is associated with the onset of dementia and also changes in the brain. So tinnitus is, the sinus, the olfactory nerve is part of our central nervous system. Our hearing, that is also part of our central nervous system. And so if we have damage to the central nervous system, either on the inside or on the outside, that can be part of the process. And so tinnitus specifically, I refer usually, as I said, to acupuncture for that specific symptom, but sometimes we have patients that notice really beneficial things with tinnitus. I'm not expecting it, and all of a sudden it resolves. what is the best way to provide care for a parent with dementia who was abusive to you as a child and even emotionally as an adult? And you simultaneously want to protect yourself from the stress that this person imposes, especially if other siblings were the favorite, and you can't understand your dilemma. And you want to be involved in the parent's care. Oh, how child. I mean, these are those family dynamics. Number one thing, get a therapist. My bias is that everybody should have a therapist. And especially here, having someone who can talk through those dynamics with you, help you feel seen and heard, and make sure that you are not sacrificing too much, that you don't become a martyr for this. I think is really, really important that there's a balance, that there's good communication. It's about boundaries often. And so making sure that there's boundaries that are appropriate and healthy for both your siblings, for you, your siblings, your parent, and working through those dynamics in a positive way, in a helpful way that's solution-based, not just kind of spinning in the trauma. My 80-year-old neighbor from Sue, my 80-year-old neighbor just told me she's forgetting things and worried that she has dementia, but doesn't want to tell her son or daughter. And she doesn't have a cell phone because she doesn't want to learn. Are there any non-online resources I could tell her about to find out about your program, like where I can find what food and supplements to take to reverse and prevent dementia for me and my neighbor? And do you have the program to learn on how I can prevent and reverse dementia? Yes, Tyler, would you make sure Sue has the link and that's in the chat? So for Sue, for your neighbor, you can certainly print out if you have a printer at home, print out we have a conversation guide that's great. We have an activities guide, and we have a keto diet guide. So you could print those out. The other thing that can be helpful is the Bredesen book. It's this one right behind me. It's called The End of Alzheimer's Program. And if you this is a phenomenal book. It is the program, right? That's based on Dr. Bredesen's book. This is Dr. Bredesen's book as well, but this is based on, this is how to implement basically what's in his End of Alzheimer's book, which was more of the science and the nitty gritty and almost designed more for providers like me to read. I'm also writing a book. I'm turning my manuscript in like 2 weeks to my editor, and that's what it will be. It will be a non-online how-to book for how to implement the Bredesen protocol at home. I wish that I could just give that to you right now, but please just stay tuned. It'll be in the emails. You'll get tons and tons of emails from us telling you that book is going to be available. And so my hope is that it will be a really positive thing for exactly someone like you, Sue, and your neighbor, so that she can just have that guide right there. And what I would say is that her son and daughter probably already know. If they're in communication with her and she's not remembering things that she used to, they've probably already noticed, and they don't want to bring it up to her. So I would encourage her to talk to them about it, because they will become a source of support. And then Jill, is it typical to drop out of ketosis after a meal and then re-enter post-digestion? Sometimes. I was having a chat today with someone, and she was really frustrated because her husband has been doing everything right. He's about 3 days into a really clean ketogenic diet, and she's like, why is he not in ketosis? It takes 3 days. So it's that 4th day. It's about 72 hours of intense carb restriction. And then the switch flips, because up until that point, your liver keeps producing sugar out of glycogen, excuse me, don't know why I couldn't find that word. Glycogen is stored sugar. And so your liver will basically keep you in glycolysis, burning sugar for fuel for 3 days after you restrict carbohydrates. So it might be that, Jill. I'm not sure how long you've been in ketosis, but what I recommend is the Keto Mojo website. It has a ton of wonderful FAQs, frequently asked questions and answers. Pick a time of day you're going to measure your ketones, and then try not to get too caught up in like the ups and downs of that. When you say drop out of ketosis, are you getting, I'm curious how high. I have so many questions. But yeah, the keto, thank you, Tyler, for sharing that Keto Mojo website, because there's a ton of answers to a lot of questions. Explain the difference between coconut oil and MCT and how much should be taken each day. Yeah, so MCT, so coconut oil is about 80% medium chain triglycerides. So it's coconut oil is mostly MCT oil, but not 100% MCT oil. And it's those medium chain triglycerides that most easily turn into ketones. Good news though, as vegans, both my husband and I have managed to get into ketosis daily, woohoo, and far less difficult than we expected. Jill, when are you writing a book? I want all the details on how you're doing that. Tiffany, how can I test my home for mold? The easiest, simplest, cheapest way to do it, no matter anywhere you are in the country, is a company called Immunolytics. Tyler, if you have that, hi Carol, if you have that link to Immunolytics, that would be awesome. They are a home testing. You get these plates, mold plates, they're Petri dishes, they'll send them to you, and then you put them in each room. Put one in the attic, put them in the bathroom, put them in the kitchen, put them in the bedrooms, the living room, the garage, put them in every area of your house. And you might even want to, if the attic is big, put it on both ends. And then you leave the plate open for a couple hours. You want to close all the doors and windows because you don't want outside air contaminating it. Close all the doors and windows. And then put the lid on after 2 hours, label it so you know where it came from, and then leave it for 5 days and see what grows out. And then send it back to Immunolytics and have a Neil Nathan trained provider help you interpret the report, because the Immunolytics guides, sometimes they freak people out, but Neil Nathan is very good at interpreting those. And he has a list of doctors who have been trained by him, and one of them can help you interpret it. And Dr. Lund, who's at my office, she can help if you run into trouble. So Tiffany, that's the best way, I think, because if you're in Encinitas, we have ET&T, who is fantastic. Andrew Jordan over there is wonderful. I've had him test every house, every clinic, every place I've ever lived or worked, and he does a great job. But it's really hard to find consistent mold testing around the country. So that's a resource. If a person has H. pylori, how do you get rid of it? Or is this something everyone has? So there is a ton of nuance to the answer to this question. And basically, H. pylori is a common and normal flora in the small intestine. It should not be in the stomach. And you don't need a ton of it in the small intestine either. But as we're under stress, potentially as the stomach acid drops, basically there's less of a boundary keeping the H. pylori in the small intestine. It starts to creep into the stomach, and then that's when it can cause ulcers and problems. So how do you get rid of it? A quick and typically very well tolerated hack is mastic gum, MASTIC, mastic gum. And otherwise, if you're having trouble and you're testing multiple times and you still have symptoms, there are these triple therapies where you take multiple antibiotics and usually proton pump inhibitors at the same time to try to kick that out. And then lots and lots and lots of probiotics. So really working with a provider is the best thing to do to determine what makes the most sense for where you are. There's also this Matula tea that's come up recently, and I've had a handful of patients try that and had good success. Does Marama accept long-term care insurance? We sure do. Yeah, if you have long-term care insurance, we are licensed by the state of California, and we can absolutely, what we do is we don't accept it, but you get reimbursed. And so we provide all of the paperwork. And same with the Clear Mind Center in Kansas. Because we're licensed facilities by the state, we can absolutely, you are eligible for long-term care insurance reimbursement. From Carol, brief context, thank you for that. My husband is in assisted living, and his strengths are all aspects of communication, verbal and written. Humor, I don't correct him. We talk daily on the phone, and we go for nature walks weekly. How wonderful, yay. Your thoughts and advice in our conversations could be about anything. He often says, why are we talking about this? What does it have to do with me? Can I do anything about this? I can totally relate to him. I often wonder the same thing. Other times he wants to talk about all sorts of things. I often will respond, oh, I don't need you to do anything. I can't do anything about it either. I was just making conversation of what I thought might interest you. I love your response. I wonder if he's feeling what just being human, when I feel that way, like, why are we talking about this? Is there anything I can do about it? It's because I feel rushed. So it's because I feel like I need to be doing something, and it might be that empowerment piece. So I don't know if that's helpful, Carol, but I love your question. And it just sounds like you guys have a really lovely relationship. And I love that there's still humor and that you're going for walks and that you're talking daily and that he's doing so well. Just with his verbal communication and ability, it sounds like you guys are really, really connected. I love that. And it also sounds like your response is that you're meeting him where he is, reassuring him and reinforcing that you've got things taken care of. So I love that. Is the program on demand, or must we be present during the sessions to participate? Yeah, so it is. So I'm not available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I have to sleep and parent and all of those things and see patients. But it is on demand in that they're all recorded. And so let us know where you are. And we're definitely open to understanding like where people are in the world, so that with the time differences and stuff and mixing that up. So let us know where you are and we'll consider that if that's part of why you're missing out. I try to do them in the evening so that people who are still working can make it. But let us know so that we can consider for January if there's a different time zone that would work. And then also once you've been in a course, you're always welcome. If you miss one or two, you can just come whenever we do them again. You can come to the next round and you can always audit the next one. So don't feel like you're missing out forever. You're in our community forever. Have you used Vilite or Neuronic 1020 for your residents? We use Vilite. We use Vilite. We use it most days. We have the Neuro Duo, which has both alpha and gamma. So the alpha helps with anxiety, and that even with our staff, they notice a reduction in anxiety after just 20 minutes with the Vilite. And then we use the gamma, of course, for memory. How much importance do we give the Vilite at the center? So this is one of those questions that really gets back to kind of the concept of our reductionistic model in the scientific community, right? So we want to say, if we just do this one thing, how much benefit do we get? I kind of reject that premise at this point. What I want to do, and what we do at Marama, what we do at the clinic, what we do in the coaching program, is we just stack everything. This is a stacked program where you're trying to augment and make your life set up for brain health. And Vilite is part of that. And so at Marama and at the Clear Mind Center, we do Vilite nearly every day at 6 days a week for everyone. And I don't know if that's the biggest component. Probably not. I think the diet is really the biggest component, the community, the diet, the engagement, the exercise, but it helps because you can feel it. We watch people go from really anxious to totally relaxed, able to sleep. And so we can definitely see that it helps. But I mean, how much importance? Can you get better without it? Absolutely. We see lots of people get better without it. Kathy, does the breathalyzer device work for checking ketosis? We haven't been able to get it to work. So some people tell me they can calibrate it and then they can get it to work. I don't know. I haven't seen the breathalyzer work. What is it called? Breath sense, something sense, a biosense, I think. It just we couldn't get it to work. We couldn't get it to be consistent. Which 3 supplements are needed? So my top 3 supplements, actually, Kathy, you'll appreciate that, is Qualia Mind is my top supplement. Second top supplement is omegas, really good omegas. And then vitamin D and probiotics, those are kind of tied, but they are that's my toolkit. My primary, like where we start, is a really, really good nootropic, which Qualia Mind, I think, is the best one on the market, was developed by would you mind putting that in the chat, Tyler? It was developed by a genius, Kathy's son, Daniel, and then also vitamin D with K, probiotics, and omegas. Those are my kind of 4 basics that I give to everyone. Another from how long to be fully in ketosis? So if you're struggling with cognitive decline, I recommend 3 to 6 months solidly in ketosis. You're going to fall out here and there and just get back in. And that counts, but it's not like you have to start that 3 months over, but just really aiming to be in ketosis for 3 to 6 months if you're struggling with cognitive decline. I'm in prevention mode. I get into ketosis 3 to 4 times a year with the coaching courses. I do it each time. And I'll do it for about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, kind of depending on holidays and travel and what comes up. But I aim to be in ketosis 3 to 4 weeks, 3 times a year. So about, a quarter of the year, I'd like to be in ketosis. And that's from a prevention perspective and a longevity perspective. This is about metabolic flexibility. It's about changing your metabolism to burn fat for fuel instead of sugar for fuel all the time. You get the hormetic effects of kicking out senescent cells, or those cells that are kind of halfway out anyways. You kick them out, and then you get the signals to produce new cells, whether they're neurons or muscle or heart or bone. So really, I think ketosis is like, going in and out of ketosis becomes a way of life, not ketosis forever, but that metabolic flexibility of going in and out. And what I alternate it with is like a paleo diet, a Mediterranean diet, or a Whole30 diet. And sometimes, like in the summer right now, I go more plant-based. So I'm not having a whole lot of animal protein because I'm having a lot of seasonal fruit. I'm not in ketosis at this moment. So I'm having the nectarines and the peaches and the cherries and more of that, but I'm laying off of like the dairy and the meats that I do have when I'm in ketosis. Can neurofeedback be a more objective cognitive assessment than a written test like a MoCA, which can depend at least somewhat on how the patient is feeling when they're taking the test? So neurofeedback, I actually think of more as an intervention, but the EEG, so we did the WAVI, actually I shared that with Chris's story in the webinar. The EEG is something that we can use, but what's interesting, even the EEG, it just depends day to day. Like if you're sick, if you're under the weather, the voltage will be way down, and it's really hard to track things and know what's going on. And it really depends on the person who sticks the electrodes on your head. So they're different ways to look at it. But the MoCA is a really great tool. Having done the clinical trial and watched how people's MoCAs changed, what that did compared to the Cambridge Brain Sciences, I will just say that I have more confidence in the MoCA than ever. So more objective, maybe the MoCA is pretty objective because somebody else is scoring it. And there's a very clear standardized way to score it. So I think the MoCA's a really great test. I don't think that we need to do something different, but neurofeedback can be a great intervention. I will say that functional neurology, neurofeedback is a little bit hit or miss. I have patients who have done like 95 sessions and spent ungodly amounts of money and get nothing out of it. So it's kind of like stem cells. It's like some people get these phenomenal, miraculous results, and other people are kind of like, "Meh, meh," and I just spent how many tens of thousands of dollars. So neurofeedback is sort of in that category. When we're talking about the treatment, I think what you're talking about is an EEG, which is more of an assessment, and that there's still a lot of variables in that one. For some patients, would detox and gut healing be done before a food sensitivity test? Can leaky gut affect food sensitivity test results? Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought this up. So I don't tend to run food sensitivity tests, because when I was studying at Bastyr, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, there was somebody who did this basically split testing. She took like 15 vials of blood from her arm and then sent them to 5 different labs, 3 different tests with different identifiers on them. And they all came back so different, and not a little different, really different. Same person, same phlebotomy session, just all in one go, 15 vials, split samples to 5 different labs. They were all different. And so I think the best food sensitivity test is to eliminate something and then reintroduce it and see how you feel, see what happens. And should detox and gut healing be done before food sensitivity testing, you'll see that my bias is not to do them at all. Avoid foods that you're sensitive to. And then for some patients, would detox and gut healing be done? Yes, detox and gut healing are always done, and pretty quickly. Those are definitely my priorities when someone comes in, is like a top priority to start for sure. Where's the best place to get tested for ApoE4? Thanks, Amy. That's a great question. You can, if you've done like a 23andMe, you've already done the testing, it's on there. If not, you can ask your doctor, because it can be done through Quest or LabCorp very easily, and it's an inexpensive test. So we run it routinely on new patients. So I would just ask your doctor for it, or if you've already done, people have different feelings about privacy and data collection and stuff like 23andMe. But if you've already done one of those, you might as well go back and look at the data, or run it through something that analyzes it and get that ApoE4 status. Because it's there, you've already done it. From Eric, I have seen and heard that people who have had COVID or COVID-related treatments may be suffering from side effects associated with the spike protein. It was mentioned during the Alzheimer Summit. Do you know of any protocols that can help remove spike proteins associated with COVID? So I can't speak specifically to spike protein, but what I have seen, Eric, with COVID is that a lot of people have cytokines that are stirred up with COVID. And this was that whole concept of the comorbidities, right? So if you already have a lot of inflammation, if you have diabetes, if you have had traumatic brain injuries, if you have a heart disease, if you're on a standard American diet, if you're sleep deprived, then all of a sudden, if you add COVID, you get this massive production of cytokines, inflammatory cytokines. And those can persist after the virus is gone. And that, I think, is a big part of what's triggering inflammation in the brain for people, that is creating brain fog and memory loss and word finding issues, and even probably, I don't know what it seems like there was a spike in dementia diagnoses after someone had COVID as well. So how do we get rid of those? It's addressing inflammation. And there's a lot of different ways. Like if you want to get super fancy and expensive, plasmapheresis is something to consider. Turmeric is super simple and easy, and a way to bring those down. Kind of in the middle, there's this medication called Maraviric that is used by the Patterson lab at Stanford. And I do that with some of my patients to help bring down those post-COVID related inflammatory cytokines. There's a product called SPM Active. So like turmeric, SPM Active, monopure, or like fish oils, those are supplements you can get over the counter. Also things like your nattokinase, things that they like go into your bloodstream and digest some of those cytokines. And then in avoiding inflammatory foods, right? Avoiding sugar, alcohol, red meat, that kind of thing, and having a really plant-based, like super anti-inflammatory diet as described by Andrew Weil. The ketogenic diet is also an anti-inflammatory diet, so you can do that too. The book I just mentioned for all types of dementia is probably, I hope it was this one, The End of Alzheimer's Program by Dr. Dale Bredesen. Dr. Bredesen is my partner on the Reverse Alzheimer's Summit, and we also collaborated with Dr. David Perlmutter. And Dr. Bredesen is super sweet. I hope it's okay to say this publicly, but he said he would write the foreword for my book, so I can't wait to work with him on that project too. Is coconut oil good to eat if you don't metabolize fats well? So this is a great question. And I think that what you're referring to is like the ApoE4 status. So if you have an ApoE4 genetics, that it does alter your fat metabolism, and it probably is best to avoid saturated fats like those in coconut oil and those in animal fats as well. But it's not a hard and fast rule. So in our clinical trial, we did not have people with ApoE4 status avoid coconut oil, and many of them did better anyways, and their lipids got better. So it's not hard and fast, although I understand the concern, and I do see a lot of that info out there. I think we just need more concrete information and more data. But yeah, that is something to consider. And certainly what I would recommend, work with your provider, test your cholesterol levels so that you know what's happening as your diet changes, and then give it some time, because sometimes it takes a minute, right? It'll take 12 weeks or even more for things to adjust. But when you go into ketosis, you are burning fats for fuels. You're changing your fat metabolism. And so, I don't know exactly what you mean by you don't metabolize fats well, but if you're talking about ApoE status, or if you're talking about like you put on weight easily or something, those are two really different things, and getting into ketosis really should help the latter. The H. pylori was found in an oral test at the dentist. Is that different from H. pylori in the gut? I would say H. pylori in an oral test is less concerning than H. pylori in the stomach, certainly. What is the best method to test ketosis? Urine strips, breath test, or blood? Blood. And Keto Mojo is my favorite guy. And I know in the chat, if you scroll through there, you'll see Tyler was able to put the PDF of our keto diet guide in there. And so grab that, and it talks through the testing. Urine is good, but it's only good for about the first month, and it doesn't give you a number. It only gives you like a gradation of pink or something. So you don't have really great data. I think that the blood test is the best. The breath test we've never gotten to work. And we tried pretty hard, I will say. Do I have experience with a 40 hertz visual light that might reduce plaquing? So a very little, minimal. I have had patients that have used that and swear by it, that feel like it's been really, really helpful. So I'm not at all opposed to it. I think that light therapy is something that does have, there's a lot of good data on it. It's very low risk. The cost can be kind of high depending on what you get. But I think that light therapy can be very, very helpful for brain health. Do I support, again from Brian, do I support methylation and mitochondrial support? Yeah, absolutely. So one of the other doctors I trained with was a guy named Bill Walsh, who has studied a lot of this over and under methylation. I don't look at MTHFR anymore because I didn't find it that helpful. But what we do is we look for histamine levels and homocysteine. And if there is a pattern there with high levels of homocysteine and histamine, those both require methyl donors in order to be metabolized. And so if we see that they're high, it means you're not functionally getting enough methyl donors. And so then we add the methylation support, SAMe, TMG, methyl B12, maybe methylfolate sometimes, depending on what's going on. And then mitochondrial support, certainly, you know, I strongly believe that the ketogenic diet is mitochondrial support. One of my favorite products is the K-Pax product, which was developed by a Dr. Keith, what is his name? I'm going to forget, but he put together a product with integrative therapeutics called K-Pax. That's a really great mitochondrial support product. And then I'm a huge fan of NAD. We'll do IV NAD for anybody that's had a TBI or a stroke. And so I think there's a huge amount of benefit from supporting mitochondria. Obviously, that's how you create energy. And we need, Dr. Bredesen will refer to dementia as essentially it's a resource problem. There's not enough energy being created. And that's the beauty of switching from sugar to fat for fuel, is that you do get mitochondrial support, and then you also get a new fuel source that burns cleaner energy. The other thing for mitochondrial support, you know, exercise, ketogenic diet, contrast oxygen, cold plunger or hot and cold therapies, all of these hormetic things that we can do, stressing the system, that supports mitochondrial function. And particularly the contrast oxygen therapy, what you get over time is an increase in the density of mitochondria per cell. So of course, then your cells are able to make more energy. They're able to function better because you just have more mitochondria. So yeah, there's lots and lots to discuss in terms of mitochondrial support. Okay, I'm going to take one more question, and then I notice my family is asking where I am. So from Julie, I'll take two more questions because I see such good ones. If a person is sensitive to fluoroquinolones, is pyroquinolone, quinine, which is in quality of mind, part of the same family? Oh, it's PQQ. No, that is a form of CoQ10. No, you're good. You're all right. Great question. I like that you found that consistency there. And then are there any possible discounts on the supplements and products if we sign up for the program? Great question. We should do that. You know, we don't really sell the supplements. I know there's a lot of questions about them. They're common, but we send links, but they're like to Amazon, and we have some links, other links, like if you want the whole script account, that is the Zymogen stuff. We should probably put something like that together, Tyler. We should put that on the agenda, because I just haven't really done that, because we don't really sell them directly to patients. Typically, you they're so widely available. But we could certainly think about that. SPM, there's just so many great questions. SPM active supplement is by Metagenics. I don't use a ton of Metagenics products, but I do love that one. And my friend Ryan Bradley, who's one of the he was the co-PI, the research PI on my study, he did a study on SPM active, and he was blown away by how effective it was. And he was like, this, when I remember he did it 5, 6, I don't know, something years ago. And I remember him being like, Heather, you got to check this out, because I think these results are better than anything I've seen with any other supplement ever. I was like, all right, I've been using it since. Any thoughts on monitoring patients using neurofilament light chain blood marker testing? No, I haven't used that. I think I remember Dr. Bredesen mentioning it, but I have not gotten into that. From Yvonne, are there people that should not be on the ketogenic diet? Yeah, if you have kidney disease, this is something to caution. If you have, if you have issues with cholesterol, it's not that you can't do it, but you just want to work with somebody. If you have a history of an eating disorder, I don't want to tip anyone into orthorexia. So there are definitely times to work with a provider. For most people, it's funny because I've asked other experts in ketosis this too, and they're like, nope, it's good for everybody. This is what we're designed for. I think with kidney disease, you want to be careful for sure, because you can get too much protein quickly. And so just ask a provider if you're concerned that you might have a condition that might put that at risk. And in the keto diet guide, there is a list of cautions and contraindications. So take a look at that list. Such a pleasure. I love just the engagement, and there's hundreds of people here still. Like, it just blows me away how many people are so committed to a different story when it comes to Alzheimer's. And I'm just so grateful to you. Momi, thank you for coming. Oh, mahalo, you guys. There's like a huge Hawaii contingent tonight. I love it. Thank you for all of your hard work and supporting the loved ones in your lives, and just really changing the course of this awful disease. Thank you for doing it with me. Bye, you guys.